Welcome to Hawk's Eye on Business. My name is Keith Hawk. In today's show, we welcome Steve Zubrzycki as our featured guest. Steve will share the interesting story of a long-term corporate executive who made a mid-career shift to become a successful owner of a business franchise. We will explore Steve's process for franchise selection, how one secures financing, and we'll dive into what it takes to operate a successful franchise. From acquisition of property, to purchasing all the hardware, to hiring and training a highly motivated staff of professionals. We'll also touch on being a family business, as Steve and his wife Jane are the drivers of this new enterprise in the South Dayton, Ohio area. Today we'll meet Steve Zubrzycki, who recently made the leap from the corporate world to the world of entrepreneurship. 1 year ago, Steve opened CycleBar, a franchise in the $34 billion fitness industry. It is located in Austin Landing, south of Dayton, Ohio. The CycleBar studio has 50 stationary bikes with professional instructors offering theme rides aimed at helping you achieve your goals while having fun at the same time. CycleBar is unique with its high-tech theater, audio and visual experience, as well as the highly motivated instructors. With over 40 classes weekly, they allow you to fit your schedule and your specific fitness level. With highly trained and certified instructors, CycleBar members will have a safe and productive fitness experience. Steve and Jane Zubrzycki have positioned their family business in the heart of the highly successful Austin Landing, a South Dayton hub for entertainment, dining, and Class A business space. In our conversation today, we ask Steve what it's like to leave the executive life at a big corporation to start a completely new journey for he and his family. Steve, welcome to Hawk's Eye on Business.
Thanks,
we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Hey, let's get started from a big picture going down. I know you as a guy who was for many years a corporate executive in a very big corporate setting right here in Dayton, Ohio. And you have made what I call it a mid-career shift. I hope that's not charitable because we're still young men. A mid-career shift to become a business owner. And you've gone the franchise route. Can I ask you how this all got started?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I was in the corporate world for over 30 years. During that time, I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to work in very many different functions within the company. So I spent some time in finance and strategy, did some marketing, product development, and over that time was really able to build a fairly broad base of experience level, which is very well suited to starting your own business. Okay. And so I think it was that sort of fueled my desire to go out and do something on my own. And as you know as well as I, when you're in the corporate world, everybody has a boss, right?
Of course.
And so I wanted the opportunity to go off and create something on my own, grow it, and deliver something unique to the community.
I think you're doing that. Now you made two really big decisions. One was you chose to go the franchise route to start your own family-owned business. Yep. And secondly, you settled on CycleBar. Can you tell us about both of those decisions? Sure.
Well, I could have just went out and started a business from scratch, but the benefit of going the franchise route is you've got a business model that has already been proven. It's something that will have already a strong track record, which will help not only in the execution of your business, but also getting financing as well.
Okay.
And so, where I saw myself in terms of where I'm at in my life right now, I didn't want to start anything from scratch. I wanted to limit the risk a little bit, which you do when you go the franchise route. So that's why I did the franchise route. In terms of CycleBar, a couple reasons which really attracted me to it. The first thing I would say is if you're going to run your own business, then the first rule is you have to be passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, because whether you like it or not, it really begins to sort of consume your life and becomes part of your life. So you've got to enjoy what it is you're doing. So you've got to be passionate about it. I've been passionate about fitness for a very long time. I ran cross country and track competitively in high school and college. And I've been working out my entire life. So I am passionate about fitness. So as I went out and looked at different opportunities, I was looking for something that could provide me some sustained growth over a period of time, and something that would allow me to deliver some sort of unique value to the community. And CycleBar really sort of fit those standards. The other thing is, once I learned more about CycleBar, I really like the financial model. It does require some level of capital investment up front. But once you get the business up and running, you then have basically two costs. You've got the rent for the facility, and you've got the salaries. And it's really a fixed cost business. And once you cover those fixed costs, there's tremendous upside on driving profit growth over and above that. So those were sort of the factors that went into my decision about choosing CycleBar.
Spoken like the long-term experienced exec who I think has a deep financial background that I would have expected, Steve. Well, you brought up the financing. Let's talk about that. You're a father. You're even, maybe, if I may say, a grandfather.
I am, yeah.
You have a home, a wonderful home. You have this great family. And I suspect your risk profile was something you had to balance as you're making decisions. Mm-hmm. So a question every one of our audience probably has about starting a franchise is there are some costs up front, mm-hmm. from acquiring property that you can utilize, whether you buy or rent, a build out on that property. You have an amazingly incredible studio that I encourage everyone to go take a look at and experience firsthand. But all of those bikes, all of that audio video experience, and then, oh, by the way, we're hiring human beings to be in front of all those sessions, all costs money.
Sure.
I'm interested in how the financing works. And I don't want to know the dollar figures, mm-hmm. but I am interested in how you go about deciding how much of this do I take out of my life savings, how do I finance, how does that work?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are a couple of routes you can go. I mean, you can go the more traditional routes where you can go try to get a commercial loan from a commercial bank. You can get loans through the Small Business Administration, mm-hmm. Association. Actually get some pretty competitive rates that way. Mm-hmm. If you go the franchise route, some franchises actually will help you with financing. You can go seek investors or partners to join you in the business. I actually went a little bit of what I would consider an unconventional route, and I actually took advantage of a fairly recent update to the tax code, which allows individuals who want to start up a business to basically use 401k money. You roll 401k money into the business, and basically that's the funding of your business, and it's tax-free. That's the benefit.
You're essentially borrowing from yourself?
You're borrowing from yourself. You put the money into the business, and the neat thing about it is that once you have the business up and running, you can then, on a tax-free basis, put that money back into the 401k and replenish the funds that you use to start up the business. So it does have some restrictions that come along with it and some reporting requirements, but if you have the flexibility to do it, it's a great option. And that's what I did.
That's a savvy veteran move. I applaud you for that. Good. Well, I remember, and I should tell the people who are watching our show, Steve and I have known each other and have been colleagues in the past. And I recall when you got started with this concept, and when you told me about it, I thought, oh, wow, that's great. I can't wait to go there next month or next quarter. It didn't happen that fast. It took some time. Can you walk us through what has to happen from the time you make a decision that says, CycleBar is the way I'm going to go, to opening day?
Sure.
What goes into that?
Sure.
And give us an idea of how long it takes.
Sure. Well, it's a lot of work, and it was more time than I originally anticipated. So I would say from the time I actually signed my franchise agreement until I opened the doors, it was a good 18 months. And probably the most challenging and time-consuming part of it was actually finding the real estate. You really want to make sure that you're in a location that's conveniently located for customers. I wanted to find a spot that I knew over time would provide additional growth in terms of additional businesses coming into the area. And you want to be in a position that to know that 5, 10 years down the road that's still going to be a vibrant and viable location. So we scoured the area and looked at many different options and settled at Austin Landing, which we're extremely happy about it. It's got a great mix of office space that's there where corporations are located right there. It's got housing. It's got a couple of hotels, and it's got a lot of other upscale retail establishments that bring and draw customers into our location. So finding the right real estate, negotiating the lease was the most time-consuming piece of it. Then comes the build-out. Now, fortunately, with a franchise, most of that's already decided for you. I mean, when they've basically laid out what the layout of the space is going to look like, what the technology is going to look like, what the finishings are going to look like.
Franchise,
and
right?
so, so that's all laid out for you. So that piece of it really was not that difficult for us.
Execute, right?
We had to execute it. We had to hire the contractor to come in and do the build-out. Unfortunately, despite other horror stories I've heard, ours was actually a pretty smooth build-out. Once we got it built out, then there's the hiring of the employees. We had basically two sort of categories of employees. We've got our customer service staff, and we have our instructors. In terms of the instructors, we went out, and I spent a lot of time at many different spin classes throughout the area, looking and scouting different talent.
This undercover, undercover spy.
Yeah, found some that way. But what's interesting about CycleBar is when you think about the caliber of instructor that we're looking for, one might assume that we're looking for someone that has years and years of experience. That actually is not the case. Yeah. We, in terms of our instruction approach, we have a fairly unique approach where we teach to the rhythm of music. And so the instructors that we're looking for have to have some level of what I'll call musicality, where they can ride to the beat of music. So that's one factor we look for. The other factor we look for is we have to have instructors that are inspiring. So you have to have a very outgoing personality. So if you have those two things, you can ride to the beat of the music and you have a very outgoing personality, the rest of it we can train you to learn over time. You can't teach someone to have a personality.
Now, from my understanding and experience, you don't just put them up on the bike a week after you hire them. They have to go through a process to prepare for that, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so as we're looking for talent in the area, we basically have anyone who's interested do a 10-minute audition. We'll put them on a bike. They'll run through a couple of songs, do their drills. We actually videotape it. We then have to send that videotape to CycleBar, and CycleBar will approve any instructor. The
home office, so to speak.
That we, I mean, they're very high on maintaining brand standards, and at the end of the day, that's the product we're delivering.
They are CycleBar to your customers.
Right, right, and so they're very particular about who it is that we hire. Once we get the approval then on the audition, then we put them through a very rigorous training process. Once then we feel like they're ready to actually teach a class, we go through one more round of videotaping where we'll have them do a full class. We videotape that and send it to CycleBar, and then they will either approve or tell us where we have to work to improve their skills. So
anyone out there watching that has an interest conceivably in being one of those types of individuals that might instruct in front of one of your classes, how long could they expect it to take to become certified, assuming they have the basic musicality, the enthusiasm, and that sort of background?
I would say it's probably about a 6-week process.
Okay.
And we do sort of our training sessions in 2-hour increments. I mean, we don't, take them in there and
They're
have
not
them
going to
do
boot camp,
a
right?
12-hour session or anything like that. It's done over a course of several days that are spread out over time. And once we go through a session, they'll go off on their own and do some practicing and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So yeah, 6 weeks is usually the average time.
Okay, very good. And I am not going to ask you again for a dollar figure, but I assume, that's a, though they don't work a lot of hours for you, I assume they're relatively well compensated because you're also competing for them around town.
Yeah.
I take it now?
Yeah, yep,
So,
yep,
pretty
absolutely.
Good, pretty good
yeah.
care of them
yeah.
at the CycleBar.
So that was the training and hiring piece, and then the final piece was really preparing for our grand opening, and we wanted to make a pretty big splash in the market, and so we started actively marketing the business. I'd say it was like 60 days prior to actually opening our doors. So, we did a lot of social media. We were out at different local events, just promoting the business.
Okay. And you opened, what's your exact opening date?
It was October 30th of last year. So yeah, we've just passed our 1-year mark.
October 30th, 2017.
Yep.
Yeah, congratulations on the successful first year.
Thank you.
Yeah, many more to come, and we'll dive into more. Let's talk about, when you really boil it down, why people do business with you. And if you could really say, what is the core purpose of your business, or said another way, what is the real true value or values that CycleBar brings to the people who come and put their money on the table to do business with you? What are they getting? What are all the things they are getting, or what they are seeking?
Well, I would say, if I look at it from a 50,000 foot level, there's really sort of 2 areas of value we deliver. I would say one is pretty obvious, the other one may not be quite as obvious. The obvious one is, our impact on people's lives by providing an awesome cardio workout that hopefully over time improves their quality of life. So, I mean, I think that's pretty straightforward and really core to our mission. The other piece that may not be quite as obvious is we're trying to build a sense of community among our customers and among our riders. And so we do that in many ways. I mean, we want to make CycleBar a place where you can meet up with your friends, get a great cardio workout, and stay and hang out and have some fun. And so we've done that through really creating themed classes that provide some level of social activity after class. So, for instance, every Friday after our 5:45 p.m. class, we have what we call our happy hour class. Okay. And after class, we will invite like local breweries to come in and give away free samples of beer. And people stay around and talk. I mean, we've had people stay as long as up to an hour after a class just socializing. The other thing that we do is we do a lot of charity work. We use our studio to help local charities actually raise funds for their cause. And the way we do that is we basically loan out our studio to the charity, and they decide, how they want the fee structure organized, how much they want to charge for each bike. We deliver the class, and all of the money then goes to the charity. So that also is one thing that sort of builds a sense of community throughout our ridership as well. So those are really the 2 things, the great cardio workout and the sense of community.
Yeah, and the community, I believe, is real. So I can add, Steve has had things like baby showers.
Yep. We've had a couple bridal showers.
Goodbye parties.
Yeah.
Seniors go off to college events.
We do corporate team building events.
Yeah, so, a tremendous way to have a team builder. It's a concentrated thing you're doing together as a group, and then you've got this natural. It's not exactly a locker room. It's a lot nicer than a locker room, right outside the door of the studio. Okay, great. I'm interested in the marketing perspective. You talked about it a little bit when you spoke of the grand opening, but can you describe now how you get people in the door? What brings them to CycleBar, and then what are they going to experience when they come there in terms of the business part of it, of if they decide they want to do business with you? How does that work?
Good question. So the key to us hooking a customer is basically to get them in the door. One thing that we have found is many prospective customers have a stereotypical view of what a spin class is like. It's very intimidating, it's taxing, There's a concern, am I going to make it through it? And so what we try to do is erase all that. Our approach, number one, is to relieve all of those fears. It's our objective to appeal to a very broad audience in terms of age, gender, fitness level. And so as our instructors are there to create an environment where you can get a very, very awesome workout, they're also there to comfort those that may not be quite as advanced. We recommend that basically everybody ride at their own pace until 2-3 times down the road you build up enough stamina where you feel comfortable in terms of keeping up. So it's getting that person in the door. So how do we do that? We do a lot of social media. Believe me, I've learned a lot about Facebook over the last year. I must confess that I was a resistor in terms of social media. I didn't even have a Facebook account prior to opening this business. I tell you what, I've learned a lot about it, and I now fully understand why Facebook has a market capitalization of over $400 billion. I mean, it's a tremendous tool. It's a tremendous tool. So we do a lot of social media through Facebook. We do Instagram. A lot of it, quite frankly, is word of mouth, just getting the word out. We have a lot through customer referrals. We also have programs, though, to get people in the door. I mean, I've started a program where I have a business of the month where we go out and partner with a local business and give their employees the opportunity to come in and try out CycleBar. So we give them 5 free classes to use during the month. And then once the month is over, we give them special pricing as their initial package to get oriented to CycleBar. So really the key is getting customers that first step to get them in the door to experience what we're about and to eliminate that intimidation factor.
Yeah. Well, it appears to be working. It appears to be working for sure. I want you to step back from your business a little bit, right? You've been in it over a year now, well over a year when you consider the ramp-up time to get there. And step back and think about the next few years. And my big broad question is, what few things must absolutely go right for you and your business to be successful in the longer term? What has to happen in a positive way for you guys to really be successful?
Well, a couple things. One is we need to continue to evolve the business. I mean, where we're sitting right now, we've got a series of classes that sort of appeal to the masses. That's where most CycleBar franchises start out. I think over time, to grow the business, we'll need to look at capturing different areas of the market which might require some more level of specialization. And we've got some efforts underway to do that. I'll give you an example. One area that we have not really captured is like the high school market. And so I recently hired on my staff on a part-time basis a female pro soccer player. And what she's doing is helping me create a off-season cross-training program for local high school girls soccer teams.
Wow.
And so without that kind of specific program, I doubt we would have reached those high school students. But that's just one example where we can provide just that level of specialization that will allow us to go off and sort of attack that market. So creating those types of opportunities to grow the business. I think the second thing in terms of what must go right is continuing to build the membership base. In any business, you're going to have some level of cancellations and so forth, and so you need to sort of keep driving those leads into the business. And so we just need to be creative in terms of how we go about generating those leads.
All these years and all these functions you've performed, you end up where it really needs to be, in sales.
Yeah, right.
In addition to being the CEO at the same time. Okay, well let me twist a little bit from the things go right and say there had to be challenges as you've worked through the financing, the build out, the hiring, all this stuff. Can you talk about the things that were most challenging as you got going and then now that you're fully operational? What's the tough parts?
I'll tell you a couple things. One is, I must say, particularly having been in a large corporation for so long, I have developed a huge appreciation for the small business owner in terms of all the things that one must manage. I mean, anything from, payroll to workers' compensation to liability insurance to property insurance to state sales tax. I mean, none of it was really a surprise, but it's sort of the cumulative effect of having to manage the whole gamut of all of those
operations.
A lot of
layers to that stuff, right?
Definitely. That was definitely a challenge. The other sort of ongoing challenge is really staffing.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at our employees, you know, every one of them either have a full-time separate job or they are a full-time student. So CycleBar isn't necessarily their #1 priority, and so obviously there are life changes. Our students live in other cities and they go back home. So keeping that pipeline of you know, candidates, both from a customer service perspective and an instructor perspective, is paramount, but is a challenge because it's you're always, you know, in the mode of looking for talent and who can I bring on next.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, you are the ultimate fallback should there not be any other instructor, because you are very fit, so I'm presuming you're ready to go, right?
Yeah.
We're going to play the oldies that day, I suspect, Steve, when you get up front. Sorry. Competitors are always in mind in any kind of business we're in. Can you kind of describe the competitive environment?
Sure.
Who or what are you competing with?
Sure, sure. Well, I guess when I look at competition, I look at it on a number of fronts. With regard to, if you look at CycleBar, for instance, nationwide, they compete with other cycling brands like SoulCycle, Flywheel. Those brands aren't in our market today. There are several privately owned studios, but quite frankly, they have different approaches than what we have. So even though they're into indoor cycling, I do consider them different. I would say where we compete more head-to-head is really in what I would call the boutique fitness industry. If you look at the overall fitness industry nationwide, it's been growing at about the 5% range over the last 3 years. But if you look at the segment that's specifically boutique fitness, that's been growing at about 75%.
Oh my!
So huge.
So like a yoga studio?
Yeah.
Or
so there's things like Pure Bar, there's kickboxing, there's Pilates, there's boot camp training, there's CrossFit, all of those, and it appears that particularly millennials like that kind of experience better than your big box gyms.
The group fitness,
it's
an intimate group.
It's a more intimate experience, and most of them have somewhat of a personal trainer sort of aspect to it, and I think that's what's appealing.
Okay, okay. What are you most proud of when you think about your business? Here we are, just over a year after you've opened as we film.
Couple things, I would say, and it goes back to the value that we're trying to deliver, and that is, you know, the impact that we've had on people's lives. I mean, we've had customers come in who have had, you know, weight loss goals, where I had one guy who lost 40 pounds in the first 3 months. I've had people who have recently gone through heart surgery, had, you know, stent surgery, and have used CycleBar as a way to recover from that. I've had people who have had hip surgeries. I've had people who have had knee surgeries. And so it's really rewarding to us to see how we can have a real solid impact on their life and their health going forward. So that's one aspect. Sure. The other aspect that I'm proud of is, like I said, I think we've developed a community among our riders. There's been a lot of friendships that have been made so far at CycleBar. And if I look back at the work that we've done with charities, we've done, in the year that we've been open, I think we've done around 35 different charitable events. Those events can raise anywhere between like $500 and $1,500 a piece. So in a fairly short period of time, I think we've had a pretty solid impact on you know, charities within the local area.
Not just making money, making a difference, for sure.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, changing gears a little bit. Today you had essentially what is a family business. I mean, you certainly have employees who aren't family members, but you have a family business. You and Jane run this thing. You spent 30 years in a multi-billion-dollar corporation. I can't think of a more separate, two more different types of settings to live one's career. Can you compare and contrast what it's like now that you're doing it from a family standpoint to that corporate experience that you had for so long?
Well, yeah, it is quite different. You know, when I was in the corporate world, you've got you know, a lot of support systems and mechanisms in place. I mean, I had my HR person who I could rely on for hiring and training. I had my, you know, legal support person who, you know, did all of my contracts. I had my financial person who worried about the financials and closed the books. I don't necessarily have that today,
Somebody
right?
paid for all those people too, and it wasn't you.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. So,
Yeah.
you know, as I said before, you know, there's a whole lot of balls that are up in the air that you really have to manage. I would say, you know, the other thing is in the corporate world, you have a lot of structure that's sort of set for you, even down to your schedule and the meetings that are scheduled that you must attend or that you put on your schedule. That's not the case, you know, in the small business world. I mean, you manage your own agenda, and as such, you have to remain focused on what the priorities are, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, you sort of have to lay out, you know, the plan, what has to be, you know, attacked over the next 30, 60, 90 days, and stick to that plan. And it requires a lot of discipline, because if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you.
Done.
The buck stops right with
There
you.
is no they in that corporate setting.
Yeah,
You are the they.
So on one hand, you know, I said, you know, wanting to start my own business, I sort of wanted to be my own boss. I mean, that's, you know, that's sort of the plus of it. The minus, so to speak, is you've got to step up and do it. You've got to be accountable to yourself to make it happen.
You know what they say about owning your own business: work any 60 hours you like. But you're going to work the hours.
Yeah.
So you and your wife Jane are running the show.
Yep.
How is it for you two as a couple? You own this business together. You probably have never worked this closely together in your married life, I'm assuming. What is that like?
Well, I must say, it requires some level of adjustment.
Okay.
I mean, when we sort of attacked this, we, at a very high level, sort of decided what we each were best at doing in terms of the functions, and we sort of split up the functions. I was, you know, better more at the business aspects of it. She was better at the sort of marketing and sales piece of it. So that's kind of how we sort of divided up the levels of responsibility. But over time, you know, things change, and you know, you've got to have a certain level of patience. It's kind of it's difficult to fire your spouse.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we haven't had to do that yet.
Good.
But
performance plan maybe, but no firing.
You know, there's some give and take that comes along the way, and you know, sometimes she'll have to, you know, back me up, and sometimes I'll have to back her up. But we don't mind doing that. I mean, that's what a partnership is all about. And I mean, like I said, I mean, it does become somewhat consuming. We talk about the business quite a bit during our free time. We bounce a lot of ideas off each other. And again, she's got a lot of great ideas about sort of the soft aspects of the business. And you know, I run more of the hardcore part of it.
Okay, very good. Last question. Looking to the future, Steve, what can we expect as this business evolves? Is there anything we haven't talked about from an evolution standpoint that you see happening different going forward in terms of the ability to keep sustaining and growing?
Yep. Well, if I were to look at it from that perspective, I would look at it more short-term, medium term, and then long-term. I think short-term, we're going to continue to evolve the business as it is. We're going to try to go after different markets. We're going to, you know, it's a must to keep the business fresh. So we'll be evolving and adding to our class types. As I said, we're going to be going after different markets, and we're going to kind of grow the core business that we have. As that business grows, you know, somewhere down the line, there could be an opportunity to open up a second location.
Okay.
I mean, right now, I mean, we're drawing as far away as, on a regular basis, regular customers from the Vandalia and Troy area.
That far, really?
Right.
So you'll go 30 miles,
So
35
I
miles.
think, you know, as the business grows, we could probably support a second location. It would likely be north of town. There's already a CycleBar about 25 minutes south of us at Liberty Township, the Liberty Township Shopping Center. So I think the north area at some point in time could support another location. So that's sort of the medium term. Longer term, I guess what I could see is potentially getting into maybe a complementary business. I mean, we're building up a very nice customer base that I think there are other opportunities to serve them in other ways. So there could be other complementary businesses, whether they be in fitness or some other health-related field,
nutrition,
that we could support the same customer base in a different way. So that's where I see the growth.
Your mind's going to keep working. Well, thank you for that. And that's it for today's episode of Hawk's Eye on Business. A very special thanks to our great guest, Steve Zubrzycki, for being here and being a part of this. And we will continue our quest to learn from the great business leaders in our area. So thank you for watching Hawk's Eye on Business.